got the PDF, usual thing. PDFs, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Right, I'll go quiet.
All right, cool. Hello, everybody. It's lovely to see you. You'll definitely need a guitar for this, and you're definitely going to need your voice for this. Essentially, a lot of the stuff we've worked on in terms of ear training over the last year really has kind of been moving us towards what I would call level 2 ear training, which is this stuff we're dealing with today. I'd love to just suggest that before we do any of this, to take your time with it. I always say this, but it's really worth saying today. You must take your time with this, and I think if you want to see some real return on your investment of time, it's a very, very good idea to just do 10 minutes a day. Don't feel the need to try and do 8 hours every day or something, or 10 minutes is enough, to the point where it's a bit exhausting and you're like, oh, that'll do. You'll find within about a month, if you do it every day, 10 minutes, you should really find that your ear and your control of your hands and all of your elements of music start to improve with this exercise. So getting straight into it, you can really split ear training into two axes, I like to call them. You've got your vertical axis, which is your pitch, as it's all stacked together. So you've got your chords, root, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, 11th, all that kind of stuff. Then you have your horizontal axis, which is where the chords go. One chord might go to another. And generally speaking, it's important to pay attention to the bass notes for the horizontal stuff. And when you're talking about the vertical axis, you try to recognize just a sound and a color. I'd like to spend today's lesson showing you how to get to the bottom of that a little bit and giving you some exercises that you might find useful to help develop that. So I'm not really one for reading PDFs that I've written. You can do that yourself, but I'll make a little bit of an exception today and say this, that generally speaking, talking about vertical movement first, chords can really be split into 4 categories. Now, the first 2 are quite obvious. I think you already know them. We've got major and you've got minor chords, okay? The other 2 are dominant chords and diminished chords, and that includes the minor 7th flat 5 family. So before I go rushing and tell everybody about that, can I just check, hands up if you know what a dominant chord is. Just put a thumb up in the air or something like that if you know what a dominant chord is, just so I can read the room a little bit. Okay, and if you sort of do, go like that, and if you don't, go like that, so I can see what we're really dealing with. Okay, cool, right. I won't leave anybody behind. So let's talk about major and minor very quickly first. And in about 2 minutes, I'll explain to you what dominant and diminished are as well, so we can whiz through that. Also, it might be a nice idea, if you have a pen and a bit of paper, make a note of the fact, those of you in this virtual room who aren't sure about dominant and diminished, make a note of that fact and drop me and Ronnie a line, because we've got tons of literature I've written for previous sessions that will help explain that. So if you wish to investigate that further, give us a shout, we'll sort you out, okay? So, first things first. We're talking about major chords today, first, and minor chords and all the other types, but just about every chord is built upon what we call triads. Triads are 3-note chords, and every chord has a root, a 3rd, and a 5th, okay? A chord is major if the interval between the root and the 5th is major, and it's minor, sorry, I've just told you a lie, if the interval between the root and the 3rd is major, and it's minor if the interval between the root and the 3rd is minor. I'll show you what that sounds like as our first vertical exploration, okay? So we'll do this in the key of C. A C major chord has the notes C, E, and G. Now, by the way, even if you really, really know this stuff already, that's fine. Get singing it and let's see how good your pitch sense is. So that is a C major chord because I've taken the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th notes from the C major scale and I'm playing them together. I'm playing them vertically like this. Okay? Now the trick is, when you play a chord and you hold all the notes down in one go like this, it's much harder to perceive the notes that are in the chord than when I do them individually. But if you spend a little bit of time with that chord and you move it around the cycle of fourths, which we'll do in a second, your ear will get stronger. So let's do this simple fact first. Let's play the notes C, E, G. I'm playing them at the 8th fret of the E string, the 7th of the A, and the 5th fret of the D string. Okay, and I'm playing them all together. Now let's just sing the numbers that they relate to. We've got 1, 3, 5. 1, 3, 5, 3, 1. Now, quite a lot of you will know this. So find all the places on the guitar that you can, for those of you that are already able to play C major arpeggios. Find all the other places on the guitar that you could do that, like this. C, E, G. And then you could do it here, and here, and here, you know. You can figure those out yourself because it's the same 3 notes spread across the whole guitar. Now then, the difference between a C major chord and a C minor chord, the outer notes are the same, the root and the 5th. It's only the middle note, the 3rd, which when you flatten it by 1 semitone, turns the chord from major to minor. Okay? Now, you need to spend a bit of time pre-hearing that. Now, if you become so familiar with the chord, major first, that you can then modify it in your mind without playing it, then you can start. Well, I should explain what I just meant there. Play it major, play it minor, and sing the intervals over and over again. And before you know it, you'll be able to hear that sound in your head without actually playing it. That's when you know that you're getting somewhere. Okay, so first, if you can play C, E, G, and then to show your ears what to look out for, you play a C minor triad. C, E flat, G, and you sing them both. And you keep going. In time, you'll start to hear the quality without even needing the guitar. That's really important, and that's the basis of all ear training. You have to get a really strong understanding of what that sounds like without needing any instrument to demonstrate it to you. And to get that, you use your instrument and you sing. If you don't do the singing thing, you'll just learn shapes, but your ear won't develop. And this is really something that guitar players suffer from. Most other instruments, especially wind instruments, where there's an element of you having to create the note from within you, you know, to blow some air out or something, the connection tends to be a bit more immediate with those instruments. But on the guitar, because it's just like pressing buttons, and they're not particularly visual. If you don't sing it, you tend not to learn it. Okay, we've all seen millions of guitar players with incredible technique, but they haven't got any musicianship. That's something we want to try and avoid. So, to summarize the first 5 or 10 minutes there, make sure you can do this and this, but by singing them without a guitar. So, then check your pitch, and then that's step 1. The next step is you should take that one set of chord types, and you should take it around what we call the cycle of fourths. Okay? The cycle of fourths, for anyone that doesn't know, make a note of that as well and send Ronnie and I an email. I can really help you out with that. But I've summarized it at the bottom of this first page. Ignore the chord names and just look at the alphabet letters. C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat. That is the cycle of fourths. And those are root notes that you can test out your chord shapes or your chord types on, that will take you around a predictable set of relationships that will bring you back to the beginning. And they kind of, they tend to summarize the progressions you'll come across in jazz, popular and contemporary music. Things move in fourths. So what I mean by that is, take your C major triad. I might have to go and shut the door because my little one upstairs is having a bad time. You take your C major triad and your C minor triad, and then you take it and you play F major and F minor. Okay, and then we do the same on B flat minor, and then E flat. Now there's quite a lot of exploration you're going to have to do here, because the guitar's a rotten instrument where the piano, everything is laid out visually on the piano. You can see where you are. On the guitar, this is as much about exploring the instrument to try and find the answers as it is to find the answers to musical theory at the same time. So this is what I'd like you to do to make that point clear. I'd like you to do this and copy me entirely if you would. If you could play C, E, G. This is our first one. This is C major, and then sing it, please. And then C minor. Do, da, dee. This is exercise 1. So we've just played and sung a C major and a C minor arpeggio. Next, we're going to take the same information and we're going to play it on the next string down. The same two shapes will give us an F major and an F minor. Now you can't let yourself off the hook here. You have to sing this and you've got to be super accurate. So C major, C minor, F major, F major minor. Now, do that for me for a moment. You may even find that this is too high for you. Some of these will be within your vocal range, some of these will be without them. That doesn't really matter. Just find a way to make a noise that represents that sound a bit. It doesn't have to be good. We're just trying to demonstrate to our own ear what to look for. We're using our voice to help us find it. Okay, so C major, C minor, F major, F minor. Okay. So we're essentially doing this. And then we'll move to the next position, which is B flat major and B flat minor. Now, B flat is the 6th fret of your E string, so it's the same shape as the first one I gave you, but 2 frets lower. Now we're going 6, 5, 3. Now with a bit of luck, when you sing that, boo doo doo, your fingers have probably already learned what to do to make that B flat minor from B flat major. It's flat in the middle note. Boo da dee. This should hopefully demonstrate to you that you're starting to pick up on patterns, and patterns are how the guitar works. You have to learn where your patterns are in order to manipulate them, and this is a really good way in. So what have we got so far? We've got C major, C minor, F major, F minor, now B flat major, B flat minor. What would you do to find E flat major and E flat minor? Oops. See if you can find that. Once you've got it, sing those 8 arpeggios. You've got 4 types, 4 names if you like, 4 root notes, with 2 types each, major and minor. Okay, so the answer to the first one was, to the question I just asked you, which was E flat major and E flat minor, it's the same as what you did before. It's the same relationship, it's just down a string from the previous one. So that is 6, 5, 3 from the A string. Just realised it's getting dark in here. Let me just turn the light on. I'll just do that. Now, could you sing C major, C minor, F major, F minor, B flat major, B flat minor, and E flat major and E flat minor? I'll just be 1 second. Okay, now if you really want to become an absolute badass at this and you really want to train your ears, try and do this exercise by only playing the very first note of the very first one, and then you sing the whole thing yourself. So you go C, E, G, and then you go C, E flat, G, then you go from F, F, A, C, and then F, A flat, C, B flat, D, F, B flat, D flat, F, that was a bit crap, E flat, G, B flat, E flat, G flat, B flat. Yeah, stayed in tune. And this little exercise, if you continue in the order of the root notes labelled at the bottom of page 1, eventually will take you all the way back to C. And what it gives you every root note within the 1 octave scale, and it's forcing you to start hearing the quality of the chord. Now, actually, I'd like to just sort of take a moment to pause here and explain to you what I mean by that, because quite often our ears get very used to hearing chord progressions within a key. So if I played this for you, nice little happy ditty in the key of C. If you spend a little bit of time in C and you start exploring the other chords, you can be forgiven for thinking chord 1 there, for instance, is major. Chord 2 still sounds happy, it's from the key of C, but that second chord is actually minor. And what I'm getting at here is sometimes, unless you break away from playing in keys, your ears can be tricked into thinking that you're playing major here or minor there when you're not. The best way to really train your ear is to do this chromatic thing that I'm just explaining here, which is you take one chord type and you move it all the way around the cycle of fourths and you sing it all the way. Because doing that, your inner ear will start to develop and you'll start to hear specific patterns. And it's incredibly useful. And take it from me, who spent years trying to figure out the best way to do this and explained it to getting on for 1,000 people these days. I think this is the best way to do it. Take a chord type and then find its opposite, so major and minor. Take that all the way around the cycle of fourths and sing it. And if you can get to the point where you can sing all the way around the cycle of fourths yourself without even touching an instrument, then you know you're doing something right. Your ear starts to work. So I'm going to be quiet for a moment and challenge you to do this one. See if you can do just those first 4, just as major. Do minor later. See if you can sing them without playing them. Here's your root note. Have a little go, and quite honestly, you probably won't be able to. That's okay. You have to start somewhere. So, you imagine the third above it. Booty. And then you imagine the fifth. Ba. The first 3 notes of the American National Anthem. Okay, then you move it down a fourth to an F, and you do the same. F, A, C, B flat, D, F, E flat, G, B flat. Now I'm going to shut up while you do that. If you find you can't do that, then use your guitar to help you and just make sure your pitch is aligned with the strings. And doing that for long enough will train your sense of pitch. Okay, so I have 1 minute to do that. I think the children are asleep.
And Jamie, just to remind, I'm just going from a C to an F. That's Amazing Grace, isn't it? Was that the one?
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
The interval from
that's
C
fine
to
then.
F is Amazing Grace. Exactly.
Just trying to get
yeah.
down there. Okay.
Yep. Or the fourth note of a C major scale, which is why it's called the cycle of fourths. Yeah. So one more minute on that. Again, it doesn't matter whether you can do it now. This is one of those lessons that it's great that we're recording it because you can dip back into this. And the PDF that I've given you here is quite comprehensive and should give you stuff to work on just those 2 pages for like 2-3 months, you know. So it sounds like this. I'm not going to ask people to sing it to me. I'll trust you've had a go. If you find that you're going like this, it'll come, okay? I was like that. I was absolutely appalling at this. It can be done. So, but it should sound like this. Do da dee do da dee boo do da boo do da. If you were to go all the way around the rest of it, boo do da do do da do do da boo ba boo ba da boo da da boo da da do do da. That's all the way around the cycle of fourths, using just your major arpeggios. Okay, spend a bit of time doing that, then spend some time making them minor as well. Okay, now you could spend 6 months on that, and I'd strongly suggest that you do. By the end of that time, you'll find you'll be able to spot a major chord and a minor chord 100 miles away, and you'll start to notice that when you're listening to something on the radio when you're driving along, your ear will go major, and then your ear will go, oh, that was minor. And you'll start to hear it like that, and then you know it starts to work. But not just that, because we're not just studying major and minor with these arpeggios, we're also studying the vertical as well as the horizontal, because we're going around the notes like this. You'll also be programming yourself to listen out for music that moves around the cycle of fourths, which is what most Western music does. So you might find yourself bombing along in your car, and you might hear, you know, something that goes like this. I don't know, I'm just going to make something up for you. I'll do that again because it was a bit crap. That's a very common sort of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons-ish kind of chord progression. Now, for those of you who've been doing this a little while, you might have heard what that was. Taking my hands out of view and just playing them as notes. I played a major chord, then I played a major chord up a fourth, then I changed that major chord to minor, and then I went back to chord 1. So with a bit of experience, I hear that as 1, 4, 4 minor, 1. And you can do that too if you start to explore chord progressions based on what I'm sort of prescribing to you today. And then you get to the point where you don't even have to think about it. You can be bombing along or talking to somebody in the background. You can hear a chord progression and you start to visualize it on the guitar. You know, you should still be listening to the person you're talking to, but your ears do go off and wander, and you start to transcribe what's going on. And then before you know it, you can hear your way through any chord progression because you've got the experience from it. But it's a three-pronged thing, and at the moment I'm only showing you one of two. The third one's right at the bottom of the page, and we'll get there in a minute. So, let's say, and this is where you're going to have to suspend your disbelief a little bit. For those of you who are really new to this, what I've told you for this first 20-25 minutes will get you a long way. For those of you who are familiar with that already, I'd like to show you a little bit more, and for those of you who aren't, watch this back on tape, because you'll find something useful for it. So, the next thing that you would do, once you've established that you know that chords are major or minor, is add another note to them. So we know that chords are generally triadic. You've usually got a root, a third and a fifth. But generally speaking in popular music, most of the time they have a seventh as well when the music starts to be a little bit more sophisticated. So what you would do, you would explore what happens when you add a seventh to the two chord types you've already got. So we just played with major and minor, excuse me. When you add the 7th on, the major one becomes a major 7th and the minor one becomes a minor 7th. That's because we added a major 7th to the major chord and a minor 7th to the minor chord. But there are other combinations too. You can add a minor 7th to the major chord, which gives you a dominant. And you can add a minor 7th to a diminished chord as well, which gives you a minor 7 flat 5. Now, for those of you who are going, oh, hang on, what's he talking about? Same thing as I said at the beginning of the session. Please feel very welcome to email Ronnie and I for a synopsis of chord types, chord names, and how to learn them. You'll find a lot of that interesting, and it's kind of required for this discussion here. But anyway, so what happens if we do that? So let's take our C major chord and add the 7th note of the scale on top of that. So we've got C, D, E, F, G, A, B. B is our 7th note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now we have to find a way to add that to our arpeggio. You can do it lots of different ways, but probably one of the most conventional is this. So I'm playing the C major the same way as I was, but then I'm playing the major 7th on the same string at the 9th fret. You'll find that that's a semitone lower than your octave. Anyone that's watched Stranger Things might recognise that. The theme tune is made up of just a major 7th arpeggio whizzing up and down. Okay, so you have to sing it again. Now, if everything I've said up to this point is total gobbledygook, that's fine. If you just sing this, that's all the practice you need out of this session. Just do this with me. Do, da, da, da. And then backwards. Da, 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 da. Now say it with the numbers. 1, 3, 5, 7, 7, 5, 3, 1. Now attempt to do it without the guitar. It's a bit more challenging because pitching a major 7th is really rotten. 1, 3, 5, 7, 7, 5, 3, 1. Whenever I sing the major 7th, my eyebrows go like this, and lots of people's do. Can't help it. 1, 3, 5, 7, 7, 5, 3, 1. Now, if you only sang that in the one place we're in, it doesn't do much to train your ear. It really kind of just trains your hand. So you have to go around the cycle of fourths like we just did before with this chord type and sing it as well, so that your ear is the thing that's being trained more than your hands. Because our brain always looks for the easiest way to recognize something. And if it realizes that you can just use one shape all the time, that'll be the thing you remember. But really what you're trying to look for is the audio pattern, if you like, and you can only experience that by attempting to sing it. So, boo-doo-da-dee-da-da-doo. Now our next one, do-do-do-da-ba-ya-da-doo. You just do the same thing. Exactly the same thing I just did on the E string, you now do on the A string. Boo doo da da, boo doo da ba, boo da dee da, boo da doo ah, boo da doo ah, boo da doo ya. And you can come up with whatever daft syllables you want. But as long as you do it and you have the guitar loud enough that if you find yourself sharp or flat, the instrument will correct your pitch. Given time, your ears become more perceptive and your voice will start to tune you properly. So try that for me, would you please? Could you play the same exercise we did a moment ago? C major, F major, B flat major, E flat major, and then turn them into sevenths. Boo-doo-doo-dee, boo-doo-da-dee, boo-doo-doo-dee, Like that. Take a moment to do that. For those of you who are already good at this, try the first 6 notes of the cycle of fourth, perhaps. I wish I could go back to my sort of 13 or 14-year-old self and say, do this. You know, I was all about this when I was a kid. All that sort of stuff. And you don't really learn how music works when you do that. You know, this is one of those things where you're not going to find an immediate thing to hold in your hands that will show you how much you've developed. You have to just sort of trust that it will happen from someone who's been through the process the hard way. But if you do this for 10 minutes a day for a month, you'll find your voice is more accurate, your ears are more accurate. And when you start to learn songs, you'll really know what's happening if you start to hear the next chord of the song before you play it. Or if you can't quite get the chord and you wonder what it is, if you just think about it hard enough and you find your hands looking for it, then you know your inner ear is starting to develop. So, with time. Ooh, someone put their hand up. I think they did. Nick, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, is it best to practice this by doing the major chords in the circle of fourths and then do the minors, or should you go major chord, minor chord, then dominance in one key?
Oh, nice question. I would probably stick to one type. Do the whole complete circle C to C using just one type. So major seventh.
So do the major and go go C E A D B E A.
Yeah, exactly. All the way around using one type.
And then do the minor.
And then do the minor. That's right.
Okay. Right. Okay.
That's right. Yeah, just so that you're not sending mixed messages to your inner ear.
Yeah. I was thinking, you know, if you're just doing C major, then C minor, then C major seventh, and then C minor seventh. But the thing is,
I mean, that there is a protocol for that as well, there's a proper name for that. What do they call it? Oh, they call it the pitch axis method. So you can do that as well. I think as you start to become familiar with the subject matter, you can kind of pick and choose how you do it. But I think in the early stages, it's probably a good idea to pick one type and go all the way around the cycle.
Right.
Exactly,
Okay.
do it like
Thank
that.
you.
That's what I would say. Yeah, I would say so. So, did you do that? Did you have a go of playing C major, F major, B flat major, and E flat major. Now, there's still a lot to talk about, so I'd like to just show you where this will go next, if that's okay. You don't necessarily have to copy me, but the formula is on the PDF. This is something you can explore yourself. But generally speaking, chords continue to be extended upwards in thirds. And I've made a table of these down at the bottom of page 2 here for you. I'd like to explain to you what those columns are. They're not really rows, they're more columns. If you have a look at the first one, the first column I've called major, and this really summarizes every type of major chord that you will really find. Okay? The first row, if you like, says R3, 5, and I'm sure you figured out that means root, third, and fifth. So in the major column, the first chord type you get is just a simple triad, which is root, third, fifth. The next column, if you add the next harmonized note from the scale, that would be the seventh, and the name of that chord would be major seventh. So I've just written natural 7. Natural or major means the same thing. So what we've just done so far in this little session is we've sung the root, the third, the fifth, and the seventh, and we've taken that around the cycle of fourths. If you wanted to go one level deeper, then the next one you would encounter would be a major 9 chord, which interestingly includes all the notes underneath it as well. So a major 9 chord has root 3rd, 5th, major 7th and major 9 usually. Okay, so what you have to do there is the same thing. You have to explore the sound of the major 9th, and you have to do so over the chord you're already familiar with. So you would go like this. There's your C major triad, you'd sing that. Then you'd add your 7th, because your ear's used to that now. And then you'd add the 9th. There's the 9th there, there's your D. Okay? And then you sing that chord. Then you take that around the cycle of fourths like we've been doing everything else. Like that. Okay, now at the moment that might seem like a bit of an academic exercise, but if you go through these rows and columns, pretty much every chord type you will ever come across is in that little table there. So even if you're not really sure how to play the arpeggios, you could just look down at them and say, well, how do I play a major sharp 11 chord, or how do I play a major 13, or the next row down, how do I play a minor 9 chord, and what's the formula? Well, a minor 9 chord is root minor 3rd, perfect 5th, minor 7th with a natural 9. Okay, you can get an awful lot out of this if you just go through it methodically, find a way to play it. Now Google will be your help for that, and see if you can sing the note in question. And the important thing is that you should always be trying to sing with your full attention on whatever note the last one is you've chosen in that column. So if you're singing a major triad with a 7th on top, make sure you can pitch the 7th. If you're singing a major 9 chord, make sure you can pitch the 9th. There's no such thing as a major 11 chord. It's always a major sharp 11 chord, so make sure you can sing that. And then a major 13. And then a major 13 is all the notes of the scale stacked in thirds. You can't get any more than that. So that little table there, with a bit of care and attention, you can spend a year on that, and I would strongly suggest you do, because I go back to that and just, if I don't have time to do some guitar practice and I want to just work with my ears, I just imagine one of those columns while I'm pottering around and just try and hum them. And all of this will help you get to the point where you start to hear chords and scales and arpeggios as one thing. So with a bit of practice, and I'm pressing fast forward here a little bit for you, with a bit of practice you'll hear all C major types as one family. You'll hear a C major, C major 7, C major 9, C major sharp 11, C major 13, C major 6, 9. You'll hear all of those as variations on the same thing, and your ear will recognise the colour and it'll identify it for you very quickly. Then with a bit of practice you'll find you know the arpeggios of them all as well. And then the real fun, because you've done all this study, you'll start to be able to sing absolutely everything that you're going to play, in the same way that when I'm conversing with you, I don't know what the next note coming out is, but I just know it. It's the same when you've studied quite methodically like this. If you play a C major chord, you know, I imagine a little line, and I might go, I didn't know I was going to play that, but as I was playing it, I could sing it. And that's what you want eventually. You want to try to see your chords, scales, and arpeggios as one thing, and to be able to manifest that sound and get it into your hands. And these exercises will really help. So the last thing that you've got to do is just above that table, and it's this. This is the wagging finger time. Buy yourselves a real book. If you haven't got one already, I'd strongly suggest you get one. They're called real books. They used to be called fake books in the 70s when they were invented. And what they are, there's loads of them, and they're about 300 pages deep, full of songs from the Great American Songbook. Okay? And particularly from that genre of music, you can learn just about everything you need to know about functional harmony from the Great American Songbook. It's very important to study that subject matter. Now, that's where most people start, and that's where they stop. And you'll find that you start to be able to play songs if you can see them in front of you. But if you only leave it at that point, you'll be one of those people that fit into the category of sounding like you're reading a jazz tune from a jazz book. Okay? What you must do, and this applies to any kind of thing you're learning, not just the Great American Songbook, you must try as hard as you possibly can to learn a tune by reading it first. Then you learn the tune by putting the original tune on the record. So go through Spotify and find all the various versions of it. The wonderful thing about Spotify is you'll find 100 versions, and they'll all be in different keys and whatever. But put them on and then just allow yourself to think about those tunes while you're reading the music. Don't touch the instrument for a little while. Then try to memorize as many of these tunes as you can, where all you're doing is playing the chords for yourself on your guitar, but you're singing the melody on top. And then finally, when you've done that for long enough and you've learned probably 35 or 40 of these tunes, your inner ear will have sufficiently learnt enough of the rules so that when you just put a record on and you don't have the music in front of you, you should be able to figure out the chords, you should be able to figure out the melody, and you'll find that almost always the melody is part of the chord, and you can use that to expand your knowledge of chords and how you can get the melody on the top. Now that sounds like an enormous hill to climb, and it takes a little while, but if you do it in that order, buy a real book, learn a song with your eyes, try to memorize it as much as you can, take the music away, do that with about 30 tunes that you really like, tunes that really have something about them that you feel connected to. When you've done that for long enough, 30 or 40 tunes, like I say, you'll find that it'll all just start coming to you. I was definitely one of those in the former category where I thought I could play jazz, but if you took the book away from me, I couldn't play anything. You know, I had all these clever licks, but I couldn't remember how to play a tune. If you find yourself in a position where you can only play your favourite tune with the music in front of you, then you really haven't learned it at all. And I wish someone had given me a massive slap when I was about 18 and said, you don't know it, learn it properly. And then for those of you who really want to develop your playing, next thing that you should do is set yourself the challenge of trying to play that song in a different key. See if you can work out all the relationships of how everything is stitched together and play it in a totally different key. As you do a few of those, then take it and play it in every key, and you'll find when you've done that, and this will probably take about a year, your ears will be lethal. You know, you'll find that you really do understand how cadences work, how chord progressions work, how melodies are part of the chord, and it's there's no two ways about it. It's one of those experiential things where you just have to go through the process, and you'll find that it works if you do it. So if you follow the instructions that I've put together on this PDF for you today, and you do it for long enough, you'll find your ears will work. But just for a bit of fun, because that summarizes everything really, let me show you what I mean. Tell me, is this chord major 7 or minor 7? Actually, I'll do it like this. Go like that for major, like that for minor. And go like that if you don't know. It's minor. It's minor 7. But I played it the way a piano player would play it, not the way a guitar player would play it. Now if I played it like this, that's the way a guitar player would normally do it. I think your ears will probably be a bit happier with that, and most of you would have probably said, oh, minor. This is what a major 7th chord sounds like. Sing those intervals. Boo, dee, ba, ba, ooh. But the guitar being the guitar, the intervals within the most common chord for the guitar, they're not splayed out root 3rd, 5th. They go root 5th, 7th, 3rd. We'll get into that later. But listen to what happens if I just play loads of major 7th chords around the cycle of fourths. After a minute or two, you'll start to know what the next one's going to sound like before I get there. That's major 7th. That's major 7th. That's major 7th. Can you hear the next one now? It's going to be this. It's like every Burt Bacharach tune ever written. Now we're halfway around. Has a lovely sort of sad, melancholic thing about it. And here we are back to the top. You could write a song like that. So let's do the same thing with minor 7th chords. This one particularly, because they're minor, it's such a good idea to take this around the cycle of fourths, because there's a part of your inner ear will probably hear the first 2 chords as if it's from one key. You know, the moment I wake up and say a little prayer for you. You have to break that by taking it around the cycle of fourths. And then your ear starts to learn what's really going on. Like that. Anyway, this is the kind of subject matter that the explanation of what you should do takes about 50 minutes, and then the actual doing takes about 2 years. So you should we should probably, you know, draw a line under it now and then field some questions for a little while, because I think keeping it concise and just saying those 3 things: learn your chords vertically, learn your chord movements horizontally, and then learn as many tunes as you can from a real book, is enough to get anyone going. And if you sing everything that you play from now on, you'll find it'll all come to you, and you'll start to learn the rules. So it's 25 past. Now is probably a decent time to answer any questions, if there are any. Has anyone got anything they've been sitting on while I've been chatting that they want to ask? You don't feel like you have to. No? Nick? I saw your mic.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm playing in a jazz band at the moment, a big band, and it's frightening.
It's fun though, isn't it?
Oh my God, what a sound. The thing I'm picking up is the circle of fifths and the circle of fourths. Most of these songs are going 2, 4, 1 in one key. They're going from B flat, then they're going to E flat, and they're going to A flat, and all the rest of it.
That's right.
My question, which is slightly unrelated: how do you practice all this? Is it better just to practice the songs, or should I be focusing on the theory aspect of doing 2, 4, 5 chord progressions all the time? Because I've noticed if I practice the songs, I'm noticing the progressions are repeating themselves, because basically I'm told they're all the same, which they are.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And we should probably have a longer form private conversation about this, because I could suggest a lot for you, and I'd be very happy to help with that. But I would say my answer for now would be a simple one, which is just go to step 3 of what I've suggested on this PDF, which is just buy a real book and go and learn as many tunes as you can.
Got that.
Oh, good. Fantastic. Well, which version have you got? Hold it up for me. Let me see which version you've got.
I've got the 6th edition.
Okay, just open the index for me so I can see which ones are listed, because I forget which edition is which. Tell me the first 3 tunes in the A section in the alphabet.
Hang on.
I don't know which one it is.
African Flower, Afro Bloom, Afternoon in Paris.
Okay, cool. Afternoon in Paris is a good one to learn. I would suggest, you know what, if you have a pen and a bit of paper, in fact all of you, if you want a good list of tunes that will, each tune having an example of stuff that happens that you might want to go and study the tune, learn these ones. I actually have all this on a PDF as well, but I'll tell you them. You may not find them all in your book there, Nick, but they're
I know. I've got another real book as well.
Good. They're out in the wild.
Yeah.
Learn Autumn Leaves.
Can do that.
Learn All the Things You Are. learn all of me. These aren't all just A's, but those ones are. Learn Billy's bounce. I'm going to see if I can do this around the alphabet. And then learn Bernie's tune.
What was that next last one?
Bernie's tune and Billy's bounce. Then learn Georgia. Any of the rhythm changes. So anything that comes under the I Got Rhythm banner. So that would be oleo, anthropology. Can't think of any more off the top of my head. Also, you should learn Stella by Starlight. And Night and Day. Trying to give you the really important ones, but you'll obviously take years to do them. On Green Dolphin Street. Making Whoopee. And two more. I Want a Little Sugar in My Bowl. And My Funny Valentine. There's a, year's worth of study there, and you can actually crack on with each one of those for the rest of your life and just gradually make your arrangements of them more and more sophisticated.
What was that last one?
My Funny Valentine.
Oh, was it? Funny Valentine.
But each one of those tunes has a certain thing that happens within it, which is the reason for learning that tune. And you'll all find as you learn more of these things that generally speaking, music is made up of familiar cells of harmony that are glued together in different orders. So if you learn each one of these tunes, you'll start to teach yourself a strategy to deal with certain devices. And then your ear will hear those devices in other situations and you'll know what to do with them. Now, your question was related to big band playing. Big band playing is exactly like this. It's just sped up. It's the same kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, there are technical things that we can talk about. Let's make sure you and I actually have a private chat about this, because you wouldn't use wide form chords. You wouldn't use that sort of thing.
Using shell chords.
Exactly. You'd use Freddie Green shell chords. Exactly. Well, so I'm glad you already know. But generally speaking, the faster you go, the less information you should contain. And the opposite, when you're slow,
simplifying is what I'm doing.
So, but anyway, each one of those tunes has a device that you'll learn to recognize in different situations, and then you'll learn how to improvise over it because your ears have already become ready to take that challenge. Like when I said to you a moment ago, I said, "Here's a chord progression," and I said 1 4 4 minor 1. Well, that's like the end of any West End show. I mean, you've all heard that a million times, I should imagine, in certain circumstances. So instead of trying to learn a whole song, you spend a little bit of time learning the portion of the song that has that one device in it. And then you practice playing over it. You might go, that's an expression of it, isn't to improvise over. And it wasn't like I was born with the ability to do that. I went through these processes and studied them, and then it starts to happen and your fingers just learn where they're supposed to go. But in answer to your question, if you study as many of those tunes as you can, all of you, take ages to do it, sing the melody, play the chords, try them in different keys. They will teach you the rules of music, and then you can just start learning more and more standards and more information, because they're all built like that, and you start to see songs as little modules of the stuff that you've just learned here to stitch together. So that's one way to do it. And if you want to talk about that more, give us a shout.
I will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
A pleasure.
James,
so there's an awful lot of tunes there. Sorry, Ronnie, go on.
I was just going to say, is that a good idea for a future lesson then? Actually taking one of these tunes with you and actually going over this ear training stuff with it? Or something we should do ourselves?
I'd love to do that, although that's definitely one not for the faint of heart. It would have to be like an advanced one for folk who are certain that they know how to play one of those standards anyway in multiple keys. So let's put that out in an email, and for those that feel like they can do that, then great. but doing a session with people who are new to that, that might be a little bit exclusionary. So if we're careful, we could have a good session with that. Yeah, definitely. I was going to say something just then, I've forgotten. But what we could do, we could have a whole session on, the standards that you should learn, and I'll play them all. And if we record them, there'll be a little, recording of all of them, so you know how to do them yourselves too. That could be a good one. Anyway, if there are no more questions, I think we'll leave it nice and concise, because these things can get too deep, and I don't want to smudge the windows too much. Any other questions at all, or shall we leave it there? Cool. All right, well, keep in touch. And I know that's a bit of a challenging one today, and a little bit sort of more level 2-ish than where we normally are. But I was just hoping to, give you some stuff to work with. So let me know how you get on, okay?
Oh, that was great, Jamie. Thanks very much.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Cool.
I'll stop the recording.
Jamie.
All right.
We'll be all good for the prize.